Webster, while I'm still in this race, I have to maintain my strong opposition to Mr. Ben Sasse. Mr. Sasse has exhibited a shameful pattern of outright negligence and incompetent leadership, and he is unfit to be U.S. Senator. And for an example, I want to look at when he was employed at Midland University. Mr. Sasse's subordinate, the athletic director, Jason Danley, preyed on vulnerable young women. And Danley threatened to kill one young woman if she didn't have sex with him and paid another for sex. And I don't know why Sasse didn't see this sign earlier. Why did he hire him, and what kind of judgment does this demonstrate? We have to do better in the U.S. Senate. And a similar thing happened when Sasse worked as a page proctor for the House Page program in the mid-'90s. While he oversaw the program, not one, but two congressmen resigned for sexually abusing high school students under Sasse's care in what is now known as the Mark Foley PageGate scandal.
That would be Mark Foley and Jim Colber, right? Two Republican congressmen who were molesting the pages, and that was the job of Ben Sasse, Republican candidate for Senate in Nebraska. He was supposed to be the guardian keeping those children
for the Page program.
safe.
Yes. So Mr. Sasse couldn't manage a group of high school students. He employed a sexual predator to head up a women's sports program, and I think this shows he's not qualified to be senator. And he even oversaw the Department of Justice during the prosecution of Nebraska's best child welfare advocate, Carol Stitt, for, of all things, attending a speech given by Dr. Tom Osborne, the famous football coach and a man of renown in Nebraska. And if your listeners can recall this or know about this, Carol Stitt was the longtime head of the Nebraska Foster Care Review Board, and this was a serious persecution by the Department of Justice under false allegations, or false charges, maybe we would say, I think. They did it under the Hatch Act, which doesn't apply to state employees. It applies to federal employees. And then if you look at Mr. Sasse's religious views, they are extreme and inconsistent with Nebraska values. Like all faculty and trustees, as director of the Westminster Seminary in California, Mr. Sasse endorsed the 1647 Westminster Confession of Faith, and that's a document that declares the Pope to be the Antichrist. His
That's heavy stuff with all those Catholic voters out there in Nebraska.
Please tell me again that, Webster?
Heavy-duty rhetoric when there are so many Catholic voters in Nebraska.
It's shameful. It's shameful, and it doesn't reflect the views of Nebraskans, let alone if they're Catholic or other types of Christians.
Right.
And he's used this CatholicVote.org as a front to hide his true dark feelings about the Catholic Church. It's really shameful. So he owes Nebraska Catholics an apology. And unfortunately for Nebraska voters, Ben Sasse has done a great job in hiding his real record from all of us. So, Webster, I didn't start this fight. The Nebraska Republican Party ran this unacceptable candidate in front of Nebraska voters. And the truth is, I'm the only opposition candidate to Mr. Sasse in this race. Candidate Dave Domina doesn't attack Sasse, even though he's already about 20 points behind Sasse in every poll. And I'm very sorry for the setback in my campaign, but we won't quit now. And on a more positive note, we did have a lot of coverage in the AP this week. An AP story has hit in Nebraska and around the country, and we literally have mainstream coast-to-coast coverage of our platform. And this wire story mentions the two big platform points in the campaign, the Wall Street sales tax and the nationalization of the Federal Reserve. And this is as much as...
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Webster. So there is good news. This is as much exposure for the two pillars of this platform in the mainstream media that I can remember in a long time. And this doesn't include the AP wire stories that are in print in newspapers across the country that might not show up online. So
I saw it in a newspaper in Tampa, Florida.
That's correct. The Tampa Tribune, perhaps. I think it was printed there. So using this window of time between turning in the petitions and getting the results from the state of Nebraska was very fruitful, and that's why we're not quitting in our campaign. And in fact, we've just gotten the best exposure and coverage since the campaign began. Besides the AP wire story, we have stories and reports on local radio, including the big blowtorch radio station, KFAB 1110 out of Omaha, that broadcasts into 4 states, as well as KLIN 1240 in Lincoln, Nebraska. And this week we also had a story in the political column of the Lincoln Journal-Star by Don Walton, and I hope this makes the efforts, of which many of your listeners contributed, feel very worthwhile, and many people around the state contributed.
Absolutely worthwhile, and above all, you are performing a vital national service by exposing this guy Sasse. Look at that pattern, all kinds of sexual misconduct, and he always seems to be on the scene with a watchdog responsibility, and he fails. That's the very least we can say.
I welcome your support at danfornebraska.com, Webster. Thank you very much. Whatever this,
there we go. Now
campaign, we're going to keep
fight
fighting.
That line by line. Fight that line by line, and come back next week and tell us that you've driven back this challenge.